Okay, so today we're talking about inventing the truth. This is a concept that comes from William Zinzer's book on writing well in the chapter Writing About Yourself that I had you read for this week. In this book, he has a quotation that really changed my life, and I hope it will change yours too. In this book, he examines the form of memoir, which is essentially the genre I've been teaching you so far this semester. So you may be asking yourself, what exactly is a memoir? Well, most people know that it is writing about the self, but it might not but you might not know what distinguishes it from other forms of writing about the self, such as autobiography or journaling or diary writing. Part of what makes that difference is this phrase, inventing the truth. So he defines memoir as the art of inventing the truth. I'm going to go through this definition word by word with a fine-tooth comb and talk a little bit about what each of these words mean and how they relate to each other. To begin with, we have the word memoir. So memoir is often compared to autobiography, which is a genre of writing in which the person writes about themselves. But as I mentioned before, memoir is actually very different from autobiography. First of all, autobiography tends to be pretty exhaustive. It tries to encompass a person's whole life. Autobiography also tends to be more factual and looking at all of the minutia of a person's life. It also is a form that it takes a linear organization, meaning that it tends to start at the beginning and ends at the end. So you don't have jump around in time much in an autobiography. So that's what autobiography. With memoir, it's really different. Memoir tends to be a more focused form than autobiography. So one of the things that you may see with a memoir is that it has a specific perspective, a subject, or a theme in a person's life, while autobiography tries to encompass the whole person's life. So, for instance, a football player might have the first chapter of his memoir be about the first time he threw a football, where his autobiography would start with his earliest memories, whatever they might be. Memoirs focus you don't have to focus on something super grand like being a pro football player. Tara Westover in her memoir Educated focuses on her experience growing up in an isolated, radically religious and anti-science household here in southeastern Idaho, and how her education at BYU led her to abandon her family. Part of why I like to get my freshman composition students writing memoirs is so you can practice finding these deeper themes and meanings in your experience and finding these ways to focus in on your experiences. Seeing these patterns and themes can help you be better, more self-aware individuals. It can also help you to write with focus and purpose. Another difference between autobiography and memoir is that autobiography tends to be linear, like we talked about before. It starts at the beginning of someone's life and ends at whatever age they are as they start to write. Memoir writers, on the other hand, unlike this straight line of autobiography, memoir writers tend to jump around, perhaps organizing the book chapters by various themes instead of by decades. Maybe the writer would collect all of their memories of her father or all the cars she's owned in one single chapter. There's a theme there. So with your writing, we want to practice shaking off the burden of chronological order. It's a skill that helps build critical thinking and analytical skills, and it also actually leads to better organizational strategies. Another difference between memoir and autobiography leads us to the next word in Zinzer's definition of memoir, the word art. So, what is art? Most of the time, when people use the word art, they are referring to the fine arts or the visual arts. But a more inclusive definition would be to include any kind of creative work that evokes emotion, thought, aesthetic appreciation, which is another word for beauty. Because of that, memoirs are more self-consciously artistic in nature. The intention with an autobiography isn't necessarily to end and think, my, what a beautifully written piece. Instead, an autobiographer would want you to think, I understand that person better now. The focus of an autobiography is the person. With memoir, the form, the style, the language, various techniques, and artistic choices made by the artist are almost as important as whatever the author reveals about himself. Part of what Westover wants us to do when we read Educated is to think about how she crafted the story of her life and what meaning lies in that story. Like all good art and all good memoirs, Westover's book invites interpretation and difference of opinion about what it all means. In that sense, it is a model memoir. The next word in Zinsser's definition is invention or inventing. So we've talked about invention already this semester, and as we did at that point earlier, we talk about invention as an exercise where somebody sits down and creates a technological object or idea. It's related to scientific invention, creation, technology, experimentation. But I think Zinsser wants us to think more of invention as the act of making something up, or fabricating something, or even lying. Invention fits really well with art, but it seems to fight against the next word in the definition, which is truth. How can something that's been made up be truth? So in memoir, it actually can. Truth can be invented. So first of all, we have to distinguish truth from facts. So I could create a spreadsheet with all the bare facts of my life. Born in Topeka, Kansas. Father, a business owner. Mother, an artist and student. A straight A student myself. Active in musical groups and church. Attended Lutheran college. Worked as a music librarian. Attended Kansas State for a master's degree. Married nuclear engineer. Moved to Idaho. Attended ISU. 2 children. There are my bare bones facts, right? But even though it's factual, it's actually not truthful. My heart and soul isn't there. The stuff my kids love about me isn't there. All the memories I want to share with my family can't be found in that spreadsheet or a traditional autobiography. That's because truth is subjective, meaning that it might change from person to person. In most chapters of Educated by Tara Westover, she includes footnotes when family members disagreed over what really happened. There is no one single factual account of many of the most intense moments of Westover's life because no one remembered it in quite the same way. Westover privileged her own memories and the truth of the experiences for her book. And as memoir is an art form, it will obviously invite interpretation. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what this interpretation and what subjectivity means in this case. So imagine that there's an elephant and you have 3 blind people. This is a parable that's taught sometimes. You have this elephant and someone gives, and each of the blind people take in their hands a different part of the elephant. One person grabs the tail, one the leg, and one the trunk. So each of them may experience this elephant quite differently. The person holding the tail may say, oh, this is like a snake. The person holding the leg might say, this is a tree trunk. The person holding the trunk might say, oh, this is a hose. Each of them are describing what they're experiencing, but none of them get the full picture. They each have their own subjective experience. And because of that, they have to rely upon their own interpretation. None of us have good memories. Most of us, our entire experience in life is like the elephant, and we may only have access to the trunk or the tail. But the thing is, when you, even though your memory sucks, you still have the feelings related to that experience. When Zinsser says that memoir invents the truth, what he's getting at is that you have to sometimes piece together your life as best as you can to arrive at truth. And even though you can't exactly remember what someone said, you can remember how they made you feel, how the event made you feel. And you can remember people well enough that you can imagine what they might have said. So you have to invent the truth. It's your life, your truth, your experiences. Trust yourself. In the end, your job is to communicate the truth of your experiences. It's your story. Who else is going to tell it? Happy inventing.